Guys, in the words of my late and great grandfather, still here. Yes, we are. We're still here and we are still waiting. We're still waiting for this big attack that was going to happen like on Friday and then Saturday and then Sunday, and today's Monday. And remember, they said Monday. And I tell you what, the warmongers, I don't know if they're getting worried. I don't know if warmongers ever actually worry, because you can hype a lot. You can always hype that there's something's going to happen, and it doesn't really have to happen as long as you can sustain the hype. Now, I cannot sustain the hype, of that. I have to be like somewhat like based in reality. And I think the reality is such that the big boom, the big, that we were expecting here is probably like fizzling out a little bit. Now, I know I'm going out on a crazy limb predicting something that I have no way of knowing, but at least that's the feeling like around here. No, I don't want to say it's the official establishment feeling. I am not speaking for any officials, but the feeling here locally with my people and a lot of friends, is that we're not really looking at some kind of attack that had been predicted. Now, okay, so in case you're new to this whole scene here, there was this, going back like just over a week ago, there was a really deadly attack, that Hezbollah rocket, whether it was the rocket itself that directly impacted or whether it was Israel's interception of the rocket. The end result is that 12 children were killed on a soccer field. So that was it for Israel, and revenge, like retaliation for that attack was planned, and it came in the form of one specific targeted assassination in Beirut of the number two of Hezbollah. Hezbollah, by the way, let me preface everything by saying it's 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock. It's a quarter to 9 at night. Kids are rampaging around the house. It's the height of summer, and so I've got one singing with his headphones on, in the room there, and I've got the other two kind of circulating. So okay, so this is not studio news reporting, and anyway, with me it never was. So anyway, okay, so Israel immediately claimed that they attacked, that they were responsible for the attack. And they also immediately claimed that they killed the guy, Fuad Shukr, number two in Hezbollah. So after that, there was just a couple hours later, there was another assassination, this time of the head of Hamas, the head of the political bureau of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh. And what makes this kind of insane in its execution, no pun intended, is that it took place in Tehran. So now nobody has claimed credit for that, although the world is blaming Israel for it. So he was in his room at some kind of complex that's operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, according to what I read, and how he was killed is now a matter of dispute. There was the New York Times said that according to several sources that they spoke with, there was a bomb planted 2 months ago in his room, knowing it was his room, and it was remotely detonated. Now, Iran came out with a report that it was actually, oh, sorry, let me pull up the chat. Hi, Laura. Hi, I always have to pull up the chat, I forget. So that's so Iran saying at first they said it was a missile fired from elsewhere. So I think, and I you know, I haven't looked at the map to see, but they say it was a missile fired from outside of Iranian territory. And of course, that would give them, you know, a little bit of some leeway here in terms of taking responsibility for the murder of one of their guests, an international official, head of Hamas terrorist organization that's right now like full on war with Israel. And so it would help Iran to say that it wasn't fired or planted on their soil, because then it would mean that either they were infiltrated by whoever did it, or that there are traitors in their midst and people who cooperated to get the bomb in there. So anyway, so that is, you know, unfortunately, we may never know what exactly the story was there, because right now it's up to Iran to investigate it. So right now, I don't know if you're sitting here in Israel as well. Please let me know what you think. If you have what your feeling is, whether or not we're sitting here waiting for attack, or if this is kind of fizzling out. But I don't want to say it's fizzling out, and I don't want to say there will be no attack. But I will say that the things that I heard today, for instance, I heard that that Iran said that we something like, we don't want. Oh, find the exact quote. They said something about, we don't want war, but Israel has to pay for what it did. And I took that as this sort of saying like, oh, okay, we're not gonna, you know, we're gonna like, we really need to do something, but we're going to be nice about it and not go all out, because we, you know, we don't want to upset the U.S. and we don't want to upset everybody. I mean, of course, they don't really care what the U.S. thinks, but I think that's their way of kind of squirming out of it. Now, also with Hezbollah, I'm not exactly sure. So now the warmongers have been saying, I'm sorry, I follow a lot of warmongers here. And I, you know, sometimes laugh and sometimes I get really upset. But they said, you know, it's going to be Monday. It's going to be within 24 hours. Well, I mean, that was like after they said it was going to be Friday, and then it wasn't Friday. And then they even created like graphics to go with their updates on their channels. So it's like, you know, war in the north, like flashes and atomic clouds going up to the sky. And so you know, just to keep you suckered in, you know, like make sure, like, oh my god, I got to check every second. Now, I mean, I want to check every second because I do want to know, like, all right, what's, you know, what's the mood. But I'll tell you what, I feel like I don't have to check every second anymore. I feel like we're not playing an any second kind of a game here at the moment. There's a lot of diplomatic stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. So, you know, as somebody had said to me the other day, it's Israel against like all the Muslim nations, you know, and then I was like, no, wait a second. Actually, there are different alliances here. So you've got this coalition here in the Middle East that is Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt, tepidly, all with Israel, and so that leaves the Iranian axis is Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and they've, you know, kind of like they have a lot of groups there, and you know, I think the government might be beholden to them. I'm not really well versed in Iraqi politics, so like, you know, check out what I'm saying. But and of course Turkey, because Turkey loves to be wishy-washy and hate Israel most of the time, and then sometimes, you know, really make overtures toward Israel, which they had done, you know, for the last couple of years, and now they're saying no, we're going to invade Israel just like we invaded Nagorno-Karabakh. I will not get started on that, but that has to do with Armenia, and that's a whole another story. And if I had put, just to show you how bizarre that he's comparing the invasion of Nagorno-Karabakh, which was done by Azerbaijan, which is a Turkey's main ally, who gets its weapons from Israel, which is Azerbaijan's also really good ally. Israel, Azerbaijan allies, weapons that were used in an invasion against Armenia in conjunction with Turkey, who is now turning on Israel. Yeah, I don't get it either. Let me pause and say hi, Miriam. Hi, Kim. Kim Fro. I wouldn't have known. I'm so glad you said. I'm like, what's VUSA? But it's probably VUSA. I get it now. Oh, well-being's yes, it all makes sense. Miriam, you're here. What do you think? What do you think of the, do you feel like there's an attack imminent, or do you feel like, what's your mood? Tell me. I mean, don't take, guys, I could be wrong and we could be running during this episode. We could be running to a bomb shelter, but I don't know. Not feeling it. Okay. So then there is, all that to say that it's not Israel versus the Muslim world. I think that needs to be clear, is that there are Muslim alliances and there are Muslim countries that don't like other Muslim countries. And this is what you're seeing shape up here. So anyway, remember that. Oh, thanks, Kim. I just saw what you said. You appreciate my ability to not warmonger. No, I'm tired of it. I can't. It's every time there's an explosion somewhere here or there, use it like somebody was writing like, it's happening. And then, the next time it was like, it's starting, bold exclamation point. Oh my gosh. And it's like, how many different ways can you say it's happening? It's starting, it's beginning. It's like, and it's like 5 days later, I'm like, no, it's not. But here's what is happening. I mentioned this yesterday, but I'd like to further this. I was just trying to find out, though, about right before I drove around to pick up, drop off children. I saw news, so that was around 6 o'clock, and it's now almost 9 o'clock. I saw news that there was, and I'm trying to find where I could find it fast, a fire in Iran, in northern Iran, on the border with Afghanistan, and that somebody believed it was an oil refinery, and then somebody was saying, oh, how did that happen? So what I have been seeing over the last couple of days is this, that there have been a lot of attacks on different targets. Like, let's say, okay, so like this. So you would never hear of these. Like, if you're sitting overseas, and if you don't, even if you're sitting here in Israel and you don't have like a ridiculous amount of channels, like Telegram channels, like with all different news feeds and stuff like that. So if you're not 100% plugged in, you're not going to know this. And if you're overseas, you're definitely not going to know this. But there have been a lot of attacks, targeted attacks. You hear about like a car blew up in Lebanon. And I think these are, many of them Israel's taking credit for. Like, you get it in the actual IDF channel where they say like, we targeted this or that. So there's a lot of that in Lebanon, a lot of that in Syria. Right before this whole brouhaha, where yes, we have to take revenge for these two massive, big assassinations or eliminations. So right before that, and like around from that time, you heard that there were new weapon supplies going toward Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And wait, I just want to write something down because I don't want to forget to say this. Okay. So I think that there might be some kind of strategy going on, like an Israeli strategy. I have no sources, nothing. No, I don't know this. So like, I'm not saying this is just my analysis of the situation, that this is Israel's way perhaps of preempting any attack, that they are going after supply lines and military commanders in these terror groups in southern Lebanon or in anywhere in Lebanon, in Syria. I don't know what's happening in Iraq. And now I heard about this fire, which I do have to check out and see whatever happened with that. Whether or not that is confirmed that there's an oil refinery. So a lot of people are saying now that that Iran risks, if they have some sort of huge attack and drag the region into war, what they risk is attacks on their oil, and their economy is already crippled. And so if that happens, then it could just go further, just downhill for Iran and its economy. Okay, so Miriam says they will attack to save face. Not sure how. Exactly, they will. There will be some sort of response. And we are at war. She said, we are at war with Iran for 10 months. I wish we could take out their nuclear facilities and not cave to U.S. pressure. So, yeah, I mean, that's, of course, the other thing is that the U.S. that so another analyst that I heard did say that Iran would probably prefer to continue working on its nuclear program than get dragged into any kind of wider regional war. So Miriam correctly states that the region is at war. Yeah, because by the way, just because you don't hear it in the news, Israel is, there's a war going on. Israel Gaza and Iranian-Hezbollah, and so on two fronts there is. And though it's not, it just reminds me of when Russia invaded Ukraine. This was like the big news, and everybody was like the war for months. And so I remember, I don't know, like if it was a year ago or so, when my daughter said, she saw something on the news, and she's young, she was 9 at the time, and she said, "Oh, there's still a war in Ukraine," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's still, they're still at war." And now I know exactly how that is, because 10 months later we are still at war. Oh, and I should take this moment to say that 10 months later we are still at war, and today, or was it yesterday, but they're celebrating it today. I'm not sure of the exact date, but it is the 5th birthday of one of the hostages, Ariel Bibas. Now, if you know of the famous, the infamous picture of video footage of a mother with her 2 young babies, holding her 2 young babies wrapped in a blanket, and they're both redheads. In Israel, people like if you're a redhead, they say, gingy. They call you a gingy. So it's like the 2 gingies, and and you saw the video of them being kidnapped. I believe it was from near Oz, and getting on the back of a truck, and that was it. Now, the older brother just celebrated his 5th birthday. And so if I can find the pictures, they had a ceremony for him in Tel Aviv today, and everybody was wearing orange. Here, I could probably do this on my computer, but that's him. And his brother was not even a year old, and when he was kidnapped. So they sang to him and had a birthday in Hostage Square, and they released orange balloons in honor of the Gingies. Now, sad to say, as you know, there was a hostage exchange that took place back in November, and it was for the 50, it was 100 from Israel's side was released, and it was women and children, and and the Gingis, the Bibas boys and their mom were not released. Now, months later, there was a psychological warfare video released by Hamas of the father who was kidnapped separately. I forgot the circumstances, but he wasn't with his family that morning, but he was also kidnapped. And in it, I think he says that he's been told that they were killed. So now that there's no confirmation of that from the Israeli side. I think Hamas said, if I believe Hamas said months ago that, you know, your bombing killed them. And then Israel said, until we have proof, we, you know, don't accept that. And nobody's actually saying that here. So, but that is a little bit of the back and forth that went on about them. And so they were not released in that round of women and children. And today was Ariel's birthday. So anyway, okay, now I always forget the Houthis. Thank you for reminding me. I mean, because they're so far away. So yeah, so this axis, I forgot to add that if you keep going around the map there, you know, I said there was Lebanon, Syria, Iran, and then skip Saudi Arabia, going south to Yemen, head to Yemen. So who's in Yemen right now is the Houthis. And the Houthis is another, I think, declared by many countries a terrorist organization. I think Biden took them off the list and then put them back on the list or something like that. I have to go check that out. But I think Trump originally declared the Houthis a terror organization. And so they've been actually there's a civil war in Yemen, and there was a war between the Houthis and the Saudis. So the Houthis are an Iranian proxy, along with the others, all the Houthi, Hamas, Hezbollah. They're all Iranian proxies, and so they have been launching. So since October 7th, both the Houthis in Yemen, like 1,500 miles, something like that, 1,500 miles south of Israel, they have been launching rockets occasionally, you know, at Israel, like not one a day, but, you know, they have been. Oh, wait, let me pause that because you guys should see that. And then, so anyway, so they're of course involved in this. They don't want to be left out. And the other ones, well, what is that?
Lucas decided to arrange the room.
Okay. See what happens. So anyway, we're concerned about like the little boo-boo. So anyway, so Hezbollah though has been launching way more. In fact, like I think since I started this, I don't know how far back I'm on the news. I'm watching the news on repeat, and so I don't have, you know, it shows rocket alert or sirens in what area, and so I'm getting them now, and I'm like, oh wait, how many minutes ago was that, and where was that? Because, you know, I'm on rewind, so maybe not the best thing, but anyway, I'm sure I'd hear. You know, we're good. We're in Jerusalem, so. Hezbollah has been way more active than the Houthis. Pretty much every day there's an exchange going on up there in the north. There are still tens of thousands of Israelis evacuated from their homes in northern Israel, also still in southern Israel, but from northern Israel. And so it's kind of given Hezbollah like an open field to just launch more rockets, and that's what's been happening. You know, just dozens a day sometimes, and there has been damage and there have been fatalities. And of course, the worst was the 12 children in this Druze village, and that was devastating. So that was about 10 days ago. Anyway, I just want you to see this again. Here's my high tech swivel of the camera, excuse the mess, but this is the birthday for Ariel and for Ariel, and that's his brother, Fear. And that's them releasing the orange balloons. That's a siren. No. Okay. Are you? They're so bored. So that's a cousin of Sherry Beavis. So really, really sad. Anyway, that is the update with the one more thing I wanted to tell you, that as long as, oh, hi, Cindy. I just saw that. If we're going to continue to put dates on this attack of when it's going to happen or not, the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, has announced that he's giving a speech tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday. What time? I don't know what the time is that he's going to do that. It's usually like in the late afternoon. So he's going to give a speech tomorrow. So I'll tell you what, there will not be an attack before his speech. Okay. So probably we've got to wait till then. Oh, Emily has a question. Hi, Emily. What does all this do for the hostage negotiations? Yeah, great question. You know, I know Israel announced that they sent a delegation to Cairo for the negotiations, but not, we haven't heard anything positive. You know, when it was about to, what everybody was saying, like it's the closest ever to a breakthrough since the last round in November. They said that was right before the targeted killing of the number 2 and Hezbollah, and then the number 1 of Hamas. Like it was all within a couple of hours. But that was the closest. And the biggest news here was that they're going to do it. There's going to be a deal. And then, you know, that really blew it out of the water. Now, I'm actually surprised they're back at the table already. But, you know, the demand, you know, Israel and Hamas are just so far from each other in what they want, because the current Israeli government, they believe that strong military action in Gaza is what's going to win and end the war and get the hostages back. Whereas, by the way, the families of the hostages are saying, no, stop, get them out, stop and get them out. And whatever happens after, happens after. And Hamas wants, meanwhile, a complete end to the war and the complete retreat of the Israeli army. And so the army has taken like very critical parts of Gaza where, I mean, it's not under control, like by no means, don't, you know, think it's under control, but they have taken critical ground, including southern Gaza and the Philadelphia corridor, which is like the last bit between Gaza and Egypt. And they just found yesterday like a highway underneath Gaza, between Gaza and Egypt, that you could actually drive cars through. So anyway, so for Israel to then retreat would mean, you know, giving that all back to Hamas, which still has weapons and is still active. And so the, you know, current Israeli government's just like, no way. Hamas is like, yes, get out. And the Israeli public is very divided, with the families of the hostages really saying like, no, deal right now. But now the protests that have been going on before the war started, before October 7th, the protests were anti-government protests, a mixture of like, we're against the judicial reform, and plus others who have always been against Netanyahu, and then others who don't like the current government. So now those anti-government, et cetera, are merging with the hostages, and it's become like get the hostages and out and change the government. So it is like civil war at its height. And if I even dare to throw in the fact that the army, the Israeli army, has been commissioned now to draft ultra Orthodox Jews who refuse to serve in the army, but now they are needed. They're about 13% of the population, and they're needed to serve in the army. And so just today, that they had to go out, like there was some recruitment center was open, and they sent out like the first call ups for I don't know, like not even many of them, like maybe a couple hundred or 1,000 or something like that. And there were mass protests. So the civil tensions here are also running really high. So you've got I mean, in some ways, the civil tensions have up till now taken more of the spotlight than the international tensions. But of course, now we're waiting for the impending and much promised and ballyhooed reprisal from the H's, the Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, plus Iran. So anyway, I ran out of breath, and now I have to go see if, there was a real injury and if everybody's okay and what fell and blah, blah, blah. Oh, and they should go to bed. And so should I. And I'll talk to you tomorrow, where I hope to use the same line from my great late grandfather, which is still here. So anyway, good night for now. Bye. Thanks for tuning in.